Hi, everybody. This is me, Shweta, with Poulomi, and Poulomi and I are talking to each other after a very long time. Hi, Poulomi.
Hi, hi. Good
Okay.
to meet you after a very long
Yeah.
time.
So, everybody who's tuned in, Guinea's Planet is a social enterprise, and we are building a world where being different is okay. And we've come up with an educator's kit on diversity. I'll come to that bit slightly later. Today, I am going to first ask Poulomi and also obviously share my own thoughts on, why do we need tools, to help teachers work on diversity or trigger conversations on diversity in their spaces, whether it's school or classroom or home. Pallavi, what do you have to say about this?
Something which actually seems pretty commonsensical also requires a lot of thought and processing. Uh, First of all, diversity is a reality in our lives. Um, but very interestingly, if you look at institutional spaces, right, um, I'm seeing a lot more homogeneity than heterogeneity. Um, for younger children and younger people, and all of us actually, um, to understand diversity and differences is important to grow resilience and tolerance, right? Uh, because if I see people around like me, coming from the same homes like me, having seen similar life experiences or these other me, I also grow up setting a very different, obtuse reality, which is not true in the first place. So at the first instance, when I see difference, I think I am going to react to it. I don't know how. Either I will not like it, or I will take a little bit more time to accept it, or I will be in absolute denial with it, because that's almost like an alternate reality to me. Which sounds absolutely weird, but that may also happen, and that keeps on happening. And I think if we look around us, we as adults have grown out to be quite intolerant of many things, right? Um, I think this needs to start at early childhood and even when you are in children. Um, and where do we spend, and who are the significant adults in our life apart from our parents? Of course, if we go into a school or any institutional setup, it will be the teachers and the facilitators. So if they are not consciously taking diversity into account, be it through the pedagogy, right, be it through you know way and style of orienting students towards life and life skills and social skills, um, I think I think there is something largely missing out. And any which way, this particular generation for the last 2 years who had just started schooling and had missed out a lot on, uh, uh, social mixing, interactions, etc. I am already very skeptical and thoughtful as to what will happen to this generation. I don't know in future, like we have different names for boomers and this and that. I don't know what they will be called. These children who were in the age group of maybe uh, 3 to 6, where the maximum cognitive development through social mixing actually happens, will be leading there. I think it's high time we actually know diversity and differences very well, not only from a equity and equality perspective, but also to learn and open up to the realities of life.
Right. And I think, parallelly, what is happening is that while diversity is a fact, and so at least I know that, like, for example, in Delhi, the schools have diversity within classrooms, to huge levels. So almost every teacher knows that diversity is something that they will have to talk about and deal with. But somehow the concern also is about, not making mistakes, being always right, and, being always, I don't know, politically correct, while when you're trying to work with children who need to learn to accept diversity, you also need to learn to accept the fact that you need to grow as well gradually with your own imperfections and your own lack of knowledge, and that will also grow, and that's also all right, as long as you have some triggers to allow children to think and to raise questions, and also obviously offer that space to children to ask those questions as well, even when you don't know the answer. um, what do you think in terms of this idea that that sometimes teachers also themselves will not have all the correct answers, but that should not mean that they should not allow space for questions.
So I think it's a little complex than looking at it in this way, and I think that's where uh, I think my own understanding, or rather conflict with a so-called mainstream schooling system and layering it up with concepts of diversity and life skills actually comes because I feel that they operate on very different planes. Also, what do they intend to do in the first place? I think this discussion goes beyond, I mean, it's too short a time to do that, but I'm just saying that there is already an institutional mechanism in a mainstream curriculum which is a very outcome oriented system, right? I mean, whenever we are seeing learning, we are also seeing learning outcomes. That's how we assess, which means that something is expected to happen. The more matrix we have, the easier it enables us to put a finger on it and said, okay, it did happen, it did not happen. So there is some amount of binary thinking that is happening in this place. Uh, However, the moment we are thinking about concepts of resilience, life skills, diversity, um, we are thinking that's important, but they are also considered as those extra periods or something like that. So, what amount of importance are we giving? Are we really embedding and integrating them with everyday curriculum that we are doing? Uh, Maybe not. How much of it is possible, we don't know. So I think at what period of time in life it features also, it's very important. Like I personally have my thoughts and very strong ones as to should we really have it as a separate subject, because it once again becomes another subject, and then there is obviously a subjective hierarchy that goes on in every school. Or is there a way that it is actually integrated into your everyday thinking and facilitation and pedagogy, which I think is a tougher thing to do, but is much more important to do that. But yeah, I mean, talking about it is non-negotiable. It's important. How we do about it, I think, needs to be really thought about and do, because that will happen, right? All of us, I mean, most of the parents, if they are not objecting to many other things in school, objecting to only one part of it, that yeah, this they do not know. um, I will I have my own doubts at how we are thinking through it. And secondly, I'm also questioning diversity. When we say diversity in schools, what do we mean by that? Is diversity about ethnicity, um, about religion, about, or it's about representation, it's about class, it's about caste. um, I don't think all of them are taken into consideration. It's about scope, it's about living, it's about many many other things. And undoubtedly, I mean, we are living in a very complex world where diversity often is also taken against people and stuff. So I guess we need to look at it at a much more nuanced vision from a case to case basis, and have certain non negotiables in the first place, which will form the basis of a pedagogical understanding of it, right? And not only a class or a subject. Uh, right, I will be a facilitator or an enabler, and that position itself creates a humongous diversity into the whole ecosystem. So anything that enables that opening up to questions, opening up to looking at things with a different lens, I think that's the beginning of everything. And I think it may start just from there.
Right. And even for us on Guinea's Planet, like, bringing people to understanding disability and inclusion actually happens via conversations on empathy and diversity first. Because unless you get into nuances there, then uh, otherwise the other conversations just become too theoretical, if you don't understand the lens of diversity then. So here, Pauline, I want to bring you this story that you've written, and it's a very, very, thought-provoking, interesting story. May I join the class today? And this is one of the anchors of the educators kid on diversity. I want to understand about your experience as the person who wrote it. Like, what happened and how did you come up with this?
So I think I would not like to talk about diversity or taking different routes at different parts of my life, because that's not important. But I think a part of it is definitely influenced by my own experience about my daughter, who, of course, is curious, questions things which we often take as for granted and given. And of course, she also goes to an alternate school, right? That makes many things possible for us. So the questions that if everybody needs to learn, right? So does all organisms who are curious and eager, right? Um, so So what exactly is a classroom? First of all, she's used to having classrooms anywhere, right, outside, not within closed doors uh, and stuff. So, and I thought it's very important to present the perspective, because I think more than questions and diversity, I think I tried to capture, or I sensed it from the angle of someone having deep empathy, right? Um for a little bird or even for a dog, and I see my daughter still have that, right? I mean, it's scorching heat in the afternoon, and just after lunch, she will take bowl of water and keep it at different places, so that the birds can come and drink. And it comes naturally. It did not come because she had any class, anyone preached her about it. She just feels that something which is a natural instinct of one person, um, is very human, is very basic, it's very universal in nature. And I think it came from there, that while we are speaking of diversity, uh, I think children, um, till till conditioned into any kind of bias and prejudice, are much more open and universal, right, on accepting um, things. And I think the story stemmed from there. Maybe when I'm speaking now about it, I'm adding more layers and trying to sound very serious, but it's supposed to be a very fun story of a very real life incident that happened. So it's pretty much that.
Great. Thanks, Paulomi, for that introduction to the story and the background as to how it came and all. Um, so obviously we've when we've included this in the kit, it's going along with finger puppets and other things that teachers and educators can use with the whole classroom. And yeah, like you said, rightly said that while it may have sounded serious right now, but it's actually a very fun, thought-provoking story which brings in its own twists and turns. So it will be fun for people to take it forward, and for benefit of
Just
everybody.
sorry
Yeah,
to interrupt. I
yeah.
think there were two things which I think now that I look back stands out.
Hmm.
Um, One, of course, she was exposed to a system where she could ask questions of why, right?
Hmm.
And I think that's important. And I think diversity starts from um, having this belief that I can look at it and I may, seek and be curious about it. The second part of it is that, also having the freedom to place and negotiate that question. It was not a question that you are asked and then you are, shut down. I think she stayed with it, right? And for me, I think that experience is very important, that you don't allow that inquiry to die down just because you find it inconvenient, right? Allow it, and there is some kind of resolution, and also she's still staying with it in some way or the other, right? Because there is no permanent solution to anything. So I think this transience is something which stood out to me very interestingly, and I think that is the kind of pedagogy or system, maybe I think of when I think of education as a whole.
Right. Thanks, Paulomi, for sharing all this. And for benefit of audience, I'll just share very, very briefly. So the Educator's Kit, you can know more on the website guinnessplanet.com, but primarily it consists of certain activities, stories, and anchors, that you can use with your classroom, or any small group of children or even one child to just take forward the conversation or just trigger things or thoughts related to diverse things and diverse ways of thinking actually. And we're also looking forward to piloting it in certain schools, so if you're somebody who's keen to do that, do connect with us. And of course, we will let you know more about, as we start piloting, so you'll hear more about from us later. Thank you so much, Paulomi, from
Thank
being a
you.
part of this journey, and thank you everybody for joining in.
Thanks. Bye.